It's amusing that treachery doesn't always strike suddenly. It occasionally appears with a microphone in one hand and champagne in the other, dressed in a tuxedo. An occasion that made investors open their wallets was Terra Nova Consulting's 20th anniversary banquet. We were in the downtown Franklin Hotel with its polished wood floors, 12-foot windows overlooking the city, and servers passing by with small, expensive appetizers that tasted like air and money. I watched from the back of the room as everyone else reveled in their own success. With one palm delicately pressing against the spine of my ancient leather-bound planner, my fingers were resting on a tumbler of sparkling cider, which was alcohol-free by choice rather than necessity. It had been opened and closed for more than 10 years, and the edges were worn and supple like denim. It contained everything. Internal politics, vendor hierarchy, and schedules are all represented in mysterious shorthand. Disaster recovery procedures that are handwritten. During the COVID lockdowns, I created 3 emergency supply chain reroute templates. It was all analog. It was all irreplaceable. However, nobody in that ballroom appeared to be aware of that. But then they saw Ezra Klein. With his charcoal suit, tight fade haircut, and enough exposed teeth to blind a camera, he stood in the light like a walking billboard advertising business school. As if such names were more significant than actual experience, he was shaking hands with board members and referencing thought leaders like Simon Sinek and Gary Vee just 6 months into the company. I didn't feel envious. I was simply worn out. 14 years. 14 years of preventing this business from collapsing, of remaining up late when systems malfunctioned, and nobody else was aware of the location of the source files, of identifying issues before they got to other people's desks, and fixing them covertly since it was easier that way. A part of me still hoped. Deep down, there was a rusty, innocent component that perhaps tonight someone would recognize. Perhaps our head of strategy Briarlock, the master of political scheming, would take the stage and declare, "This place runs because Naomi Reyes never let it fall apart. I ought to have been more aware." The microphone squealed. Briar entered the spotlight as if he had been waiting all day to be loved. Before we go on to the next phase of Terra Nova's amazing expansion, he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take a moment to honor someone whose contribution to this company cannot be overstated." My heart skipped a beat. I stood up a little. "Naomi Reyes," he said in a polished and fluid voice. A calm presence even in the most chaotic storms, extraordinary attention to detail, and 14 years of unwavering dedication. I sensed clapping hands. Heads of saws turned to face me. Some of them flashed that uncomfortable, "Oh, this is your moment" smile. I smiled a little and moved to the stage. I thought there could be a plaque, but not fireworks. A title change, perhaps. It might have meant, "We see you." Briar remained in place. Like a pastor performing last rites, he put a somewhat too practiced hand on my shoulder. It's critical to embrace innovation while respecting our history as we modernize and change. In order to help our transformation lead, Ezra Klein lead us into a new digital frontier. Naomi will be moving into a new support job. The cheers wavered. I was not blinking, didn't scream. I simply froze inside, all too eager and beaming like he had just been knighted. Ezra was already making his way up the stage. He hugged me with one arm, which I didn't return, and then he stood next to Briar, waving humbly like a man who had been voted into office. Briar held out his glass. To fearless new leadership, everyone raised a toast, or attempted to. Without a word, I stepped down. With my planner still in hand and my heart exploding along invisible hairlines, I made my way back to my table. I didn't lose my job. I was worse. They had obliterated me. My function was stripped, but my title remained the same. My power was discreetly transferred to a person who had no idea where the vendor log backups were kept. He once inquired about our ability to just AI the inventory stuff. My untouched drink had gone flat when I returned to the table. The cider had a bitter flavor. Eye contact was avoided. Operations Jenna appeared to want to say something, but refrained. "I'm sorry," she mouthed from the other side of the room. I gave one nod. My heels echoed on the cement as I snuck out of the ballroom and down the service stairs at 8:13 p.m. I didn't drive, although my car was parked 2 blocks away. Sitting on a seat outside the hotel, I opened my planner to a page I had bookmarked 3 weeks prior when I first noticed this change. Protocol for Contingencies, version 3.9, twice underlined. Dated, revised, started, just in case. I hadn't been let go. However, they had just committed the greatest error of their lives. Everything about the house I used to live in was familiar, but it didn't feel like mine anymore on the Monday following the gala. Naturally, my workstation remained unaltered. I left it that way, utilitarian and minimalist. One framed picture of my niece at the end of kindergarten. Despite my black thumb, a small jade plant managed to survive. And my planner positioned in the middle, like a silent proclamation, I'm still here. However, the air was incorrect. It wasn't antagonistic. Not quite yet. The temperature dropped, measured, as if I had received a silent notice over the weekend, telling everyone to treat me differently. I opened my laptop at 8:07 a.m. and attempted to get the Q2 logistics chain prediction. Across the screen appeared a red banner. Access is denied. Kindly get in touch with your system administrator. I closed the tab after staring at it for a whole minute. Not a warning, no email, simply snip off. 3 regular meetings that I had organized, run, and chaired for more than 10 years vanished from my schedule by lunchtime. I looked at the administrator settings. They had been moved to Ezra. At 12:30, I went for a stroll around the block to catch my breath. My phone was not with me. I didn't require it. I wanted a break from the oxygen-depleted 6th-floor setting. I got a water instead of a hot dog stand. Observed the windows while perched on a bench across from our building. Many of them continued to view me as Naomi the Fixer, and they were unsure of how to handle me now that I was a specter, a remnant. A sticky note was on my monitor when I returned to my desk. "Hey Naomi, would you mind looking over Ezra's updated transformation rollout timeline? He wants to go quickly. Bino, sorry for ignoring you in front of 200 people. No, thank you. A brief note, as if someone had misplaced a book and I was the office librarian." I looked at it for a while. After peeling it off, I folded it and placed it next to a page in my planner that said, "Behavioral Indications of Structural Instability." I substituted sticky notes for respect. Ezra walked past my cubicle that afternoon, laughing in that performative manner that individuals use to remind you they're in charge and talking loudly on his phone. "Just sunset the legacy process," I told them. "It's dead weight anyhow. Naomi has been chronicling it for ages. We will begin anew." I remained silent. I didn't even raise my eyes. However, my fingers tightened their hold on my pen as my ears picked up every sentence. Later, I ran into Jenna in the break room. She appeared to have not slept, and she was carrying a cup of mint tea. With caution, she said, "Hey, are you all right?" I gave a courteous grin. "Yes, simply learning how to blend in with the background." She scowled. "Avoid saying that. For a longer period of time than most of us have been here, you have been keeping this place together." "That's the irony," I muttered. "People forget they needed holding in the first place when you hold things together for too long." She was unsure of how to react to that. I didn't either. I sat at my kitchen table that evening, poured a glass of wine, and unlocked my filing cabinet's bottom drawer. My backup of the internal infrastructure, which I had assisted in building piece by piece over the years, was a portable hard drive that was wrapped in an old scarf. Officially, no. It's not part of my job description. However, I corrected everything that broke and caused fear. Silently. Without protest. And each time I took a note, the workaround was documented by me. The scripts. Nobody else was interested in fixing the flaws. Everything in one place. I connected it to my laptop and performed a system change from the previous quarter. It was sanitized. Steady. 10 days had passed since my last update, when Ezra began discussing flattening legacy dependencies. God, what a haughty statement. Even what he was flattening was unknown to him. I glanced at my own notes. They were scans of my planner's handwritten pages, rather than digital copies. Shorthand code. Diagrams I drew at 2 a.m, following a 2017 server failure. One corner had a sticky fingerprint from a night I ran a 3-hour patch cycle while eating cold pizza. With this mechanism operating automatically, Ezra wouldn't make it through a month. I shut down the files. I didn't take any significant action. I didn't turn anything off. I just checked to make sure my copy was safe, that my digital signature was used to catalog and date each component of the architecture that I had touched. I then turned to a new planner page. If they damage it. Step 1. Avoid interfering with the fall. Step 2. Don't extend a hand. Step 3. Keep a record of everything. Step 4. Stay motionless. I became a fixture with no purpose throughout the course of the following few days. People passed me by as if I were a printer that was never used. Sometimes helpful, frequently disregarded. Ezra began using the rooms I had reserved for meetings without my presence. He called one of the internal components Vision Sync Alpha, which was absurd, like applying a new coat of paint to a foundation that was already cracked, I observed, and bided their time. By Thursday, the dashboard's order reconciliation records were no longer syncing. Jenna stopped by my desk and whispered like we were in a library, so I knew. "Hey, are you aware of the reason behind the 3-day lag in our April shipment tracking?" I blinked. "You continue to use the outdated pipeline." She appeared perplexed. "It automatically updated," Ezra replied. I didn't respond. She bent closer. "Did you—" I gave her a direct look. "No." She took a swallow. I didn't go into detail. Rather, I grabbed my planner, turned to a blank page, and started writing once more. There will be something soon. Only someone like me can recognize a certain kind of silence. The gaps between meetings where something ought to have been stated but wasn't, are where it thrives. When IT walks by your cubicle and pauses for a moment before moving on, it remains in the glance they give you. When people abruptly cease coming to you for assistance, not because they've sorted things out, but rather because they've been informed that you're no longer in charge, it hums in the background. For weeks I had been observing the growing stillness. More significantly, I had been paying attention. By the 3rd week, Ezra's digital utopia was beginning to show more than just hairline fractures, and nobody took notice. Just me. I began writing in a different notepad. Not the organizer. A tidy moleskin. Blank pages. Not a single header. Only observations that have been dated and time-stamped. March 2nd, 4:43 p.m. The invoice sync process did not work. Before failing, redundant API calls looped 4 times. Ezra was unaware. To the vendor's delay. March 9th, 05 a.m. Our cross-region shipments didn't overlap during peak volume because of a system-level script called vendor flag sort, which Ezra removed and dubbed legacy fluff. He is unaware of that. Nobody informed him. March 4th, 31 p.m. I received a private message from accounting. Where is the forecast buffer formula now derived from Naomi? Didn't Ezra rebuild that? I inquired. I believe he hard-coded Q2 assumptions, they retorted. That one was written in capital letters by me. Quarterly logic was hard-coded by him. Into an operational system. The haughtiness wasn't the worst aspect. I had previously seen that. It was the total absence of interest. Ezra was unwilling to comprehend what had been constructed. He wants to swap it out. wished to put his name on something glistening and declare I accomplished this. Ambition like that doesn't pose questions. It just destroys and reconstructs frequently without blueprints. Terra Nova then gave the hammer to him. Breyer, meanwhile, acted as the shadow puppet master from a distance, only showing up for picture opportunities or board calls. Although his fingerprints were all over the restructuring, he took care to maintain a sufficient distance to avoid responsibility in the event that everything fell apart. Astute. Without a spine. Normal. The new Transformation Hub, which was formerly the Logistics Strategy Bullpen, caught my attention one Thursday afternoon. White paint had been applied to the walls. Beanbags were present. Like a professor of nothing, Ezra perched on a stool and pointed to a touchscreen. I listened with a slight lean. He said to a small group of people, "Last week we sunsetted the legacy process. The new pipeline is completely modular, faster, and leaner." Though it was supported by tape and intuition, Naomi had a nice thing going. "We are constructing a scalable system." Some nodded. One man appeared perplexed. I didn't interrupt. I didn't. I simply returned to my desk and took out the moleskin. March 16th, 3:02 p.m. He believes that intuition is a weakness. If you have never fixed a Friday night rollback bug at 11:47 p.m., that is what occurs. Vendors were yelling as the machine ate invoice data. It started to collapse on March 18th, tiny delicate. However, it is indisputable. A double shipment arrived at a Boise facility. Missing product batches were reported by another in Dallas. Accounting inquired once more as to why duplicate POs were being sent to EDI queues rather than the normal SAP channels. I said nothing. However, I saw the dominoes fall. The operations team distributed a bulk email by March 21st. Minor instability is occurring in the procurement to fulfillment loop. We appreciate your patience as we look into the underlying cause. Ezra Klein should handle any escalations. When I read that, I chuckled. Not a mean chuckle. Just one of those arid giggles that escape when something goes exactly as you predicted, but they didn't pay attention. I opened the drive once more that evening. The one they were unaware of. I contrasted my most recent stable build with the call structure of the live system. Over 160 modifications. Of them, 94 are undocumented. A number of important dependencies had been eliminated, including a series of backup triggers that I had put in place following the 2018 Ghost Inventory incident. In his version, Control Merging Ezra had removed them, most likely believed they were vestigial. He was mistaken. I took out my backup notes, turned to the following page, Hidden Risks in the Failure Cascade chart, and next to Step 3, drew a single tidy red X. Step 3. Rollback conflict is caused by fragmented reasoning. The system stalls at Step 4. Step 5. Misrouted orders. Step 6. Failure of the client portal. I waited after that. It was on the way, and I wasn't preparing to fix it for the first time in a long time. All I did was observe. It took place on Tuesday. It's not a big deadline on Friday. It wasn't a stormy Monday. A typical unmemorable Tuesday morning with a dreary Sky Week coffee and an unread email at number 94. It was 7:42 a.m. when the first ping arrived. Subject an unexpected sync delay from purchasing to logistics, CC operations, not to me. Still, I read it. A second email arrived at 8:03, subject difference in the forecast, from finance tone rather perplexed. Not frightened, not yet. The operations team sent a mass alert at 8:26. It's possible that last week's system change affected downstream logic routes. Kindly notify the transformation office of any irregularities. I took a slow sip of my tea. The flavor of the air changed. Like the silence before a dust storm's first gust. With wide eyes, Jenna slipped into my desk at 8:41. After the version push, do you know if Ezra ever reconnected the Q2 dynamic forecast loop? I stared at her for a while. Calmly, I responded, "You're asking the wrong person. Do you recall, the transition team does not include me?" She gazed at me, then remained silent, simply nodded, swallowed. On the left, I saw her leave. The first raised voice came from the transformation room at 9 o'clock. "Ezra, by 9:15, I received the first message sent to me directly over Slack. Ezra, hello, Naomi." What a strange question. Remember how inventory priority was rerouted using vendor flag logic? In the event that the primary path failed, I left it alone. It was 3 minutes later. Next 5, then 10. One more message, Ezra. Or something like that. Do you know if the system still has that I believe that part of the code was deprecated? I didn't answer. I chose to open my Moleskine instead, and beneath yesterday's notes, I drew a strong black line, then wrote, "After discarding the skin, they are searching for bandages." The vendor portal was displaying 500 failures at 10:20 a.m. The client dashboard crashed at 10:31. They collapsed, not frozen, as if the server was unable to locate the framework. Like Christmas, the IT channel was ablaze. Orders going missing in the middle of routing. Shipping times are set to 1970 timestamps by default. Live inventory zeroing out. Then the calls started to come in. First from IT, then from Ezra's analyst, and finally from Breyer's assistant. My desk phone buzzed. I didn't respond. Let it ring. I noticed my cell vibrating at 10:57 a.m. Unknown figure. I turned it upside down. One more Slack ping, Breyer Naomi. Kindly check your email. It's urgent. I didn't. As an alternative, I got up, picked up my planner, and went across the street to the cafe. A lavender latte was ordered. I used to use my bare hands to hold the building together while I sat by the window looking at it. It was the email at 11:06, subject immediate help, request from Locke. Breyer Naomi, I understand that our last discussions were short. However, with the unpredictability we're experiencing this morning, I would appreciate it if you could share any records notes or legacy instructions pertaining to supply forecasts and the vendor routing system. We obviously misjudged the complexity of the previous system, but Ezra has been doing his best. We're willing to pay you for your time. Kindly reply as soon as you can. Regards, Locke Breyerhead of Strategy. I read it twice. Then again, and grinned. No smirk. Not even contentment. Just a modest, gentle smile. The type that you give yourself when reality sets in. When all of your predictions come true. I didn't respond. Things had gone from urgent to frantic back at the workplace. From the stairway, Jenna sent me a text. Ezra's perspiration is seeping through his shirt. Breyer's shouting. Things became worse once IT pulled a backup of the development environment. In answer, I typed a single word. Noticed. She made no further requests. Another email was received at 11:53 a.m., but this time from Ezra. Subject Assistance Naomi, I apologize. I am aware that I made a mistake. How much of this was still based on your architecture surprised me. Can we have a conversation? No subject line, no capital letters, simply panic. I didn't reply, though. I refrained from boasting. I didn't even feel like I had won. Since this was not retaliation. Gravity was this. No matter how beautiful the arches are, if you remove a bridge's keystone, the entire structure collapses. And I had just moved away. There were speculations circulating by 2:00 p.m. Our biggest customer, Everscope Freight, had halted business dealings with us pending system reliability. Vendors were given access to internal memos. An emergency call was set by the board. Jenna texted again at 3:12 p.m. The CEO is requesting answers. Breyer put the blame on IT. You were blamed by IT. However, people began to resist. Why wasn't Naomi promoted instead of Ezra, raised one of the directors? Something changed in my chest. Not happiness, not arrogance. Let go. Silently, the first burden I had carried for years fell off. I received another email at 4:30 from a private residence. Subject request for conversation from Horizon Core Technologies COO Elijah Morams. Reyes, we have been keeping up with Terra Nova's latest advancements. You were praised by one of our senior partners, and if you're available, I'd want to meet. Better things are being built. I've heard that you're capable of doing it. Are you willing to have a discussion? I read it. Once. But then again. I then turned to face the window. For the first time in years, I came to the realization that I wasn't responsible for anyone else's shortcomings. I was allowed to construct my own stuff. There was no hint of desperation in the Horizon Core Technologies lobby. It had a citrusy scent, such as fresh plains, pure air, and ambition that didn't require shouting. On a Thursday morning, 4 days after Terra Nova's crash was made public, I entered. What had begun as a private invitation had evolved into an official interview. Then a whole offer. And now this. Ms. The receptionist stood and grinned and said, Reyes, Elijah is anticipating your arrival. Top floor. Take your time. Not out of habit this time, but as a reminder, I thanked her while holding on to my planner. Of what I knew not, of where I had been, of what I had constructed. There was no sound during the elevator journey. It's just me and my chrome-polished reflection. Elijah Moore, COO of Horizon Core, stood to welcome me at the top floor. He wasted no time. As we sat in his office with glass walls, he declared, I've read the reports. More significantly, though, I've had conversations with others, suppliers, former employees of Terra Nova, even an Everscope employee. What they all say is the same. His eyes were right on mine. You kept everything together, and it crumbled when you stopped. I remained silent. Simply listen. Drama doesn't interest me, he added. Outcomes are what fascinate me. Silent leadership. Individuals who accomplish their goals. Naomi, you don't need to pitch me. I know who you are, which is why I'm providing you this. A folder he slid across the desk. Within head of the Horizon Core Supply Chain Division's Systems Architecture pay, 32% more than what I was paid at Terra Nova. Independence. A budget for the individual team. An empty canvas. Elijah stated, You will report directly to me. More significantly, you will construct this in your own way. No intermediaries, not a single optic. Simply excellent. I had the folder in my hand. Jenna was on my mind. Others who are silent are nevertheless confined behind others who are louder. The ones nobody saw until it was all on fire. I said, I'd like to bring someone with me. Elijah grinned. Bring people you can trust. I sent out 3 messages that afternoon. To Jenna, first. I have been assigned a division. You should be in it. Complete operational authority. After 10 seconds, she responded, Give the time. I've already left. Then came Tam, who had been buried beneath the damaged dashboards of Ezra. Do you want the system to function once more? In 6 words, he responded, Please. Today, I'm going for a walk. I promise. Then Mateo, too, shrewd for Terra Nova's culture, who had left years ago. I received the offer at last. Let's construct. I had a team at the end of the week. We didn't refer to it as retribution. We dubbed it restoration. I entered my new office 3 weeks later. Window in the corner. 5th floor, daylight. The nameplate said, Chief Systems Architect Naomi Reyes, and the title was accurate for the first time. I didn't do any decorating. There was only one little plant on the sill, and the planner now sitting up straight in a bookend made of glass. It was no longer in use. It wasn't necessary, because I wasn't thinking about the structure this time. It was ingrained in the culture, within the group. That Monday, my team and I met. Jen, Tam, and Mateo. 3 new employees. 2 interns who had endured more hardships under more difficult circumstances. I stated as I stood in front of a whiteboard, my purpose is not to micromanage, All of you have been carrying departments that have never seen you before. We're building something better now." 3 hours were spent in talking. We discussed systems regarding burnout. We wish leaders had asked us these questions before the meltdowns. We have old hurts in common. Then began creating fresh framework sketches. We developed more than just efficiency. Dignity was incorporated into the code. Terra Nova, meanwhile, was bleeding. Everscope terminated their agreement. The portal remained unfixed. Ezra was sent to Innovation Strategy in a satellite office in Nevada, an internal exile with a nicer title, and Breyer was dismissed by the board, effective immediately. Jenna met up with a former employee for coffee. She informed me, "They're scared. Half the team is looking for work, but everyone is acting like everything is fine. The place seems to have lost its essence." I remained silent. Nothing else could be said. Then I received a call one afternoon. Unknown figure. I allowed it to ring. Voicemail arrived. I gave it a listen once. Breyer was the one. "Naomi, we would like to make things right if there is any chance, even if it is just a consulting agreement. We were mistaken. Regarding you. Almost anything." I didn't remove it. However, I also didn't return the call. Not because I was upset. Since I was finished. Horizon Corps released its quarterly report 3 months after taking over. Plus 27% efficiency in operations. 3 new business customers. No shipments were missed. Employee retention has increased by 18%. A note from Elijah at the bottom. Intentional design is the cause of this expansion. The results of trusting quiet talent are demonstrated by Naomi Reyes and her team. I read it twice. After that, I stepped up, addressed Mateo during our weekly stand-up, and gave him a folder. "Now it's your turn," I said. "You are in charge of the upcoming rollout." He blinked. "Me? You've already been doing it. Simply put, you lacked the title." Slowly, he nodded. I noticed a change at that precise time, like the first daybreak following years of fog. The team surprised me on the 1-year anniversary of the gala where I had been deleted. In the break room, a cake. Easy. Chocolate. Above, in meticulous icing, to the lady who abandoned the fire and instead constructed a lighthouse. I actually laughed this time. That day, everyone stayed late, not to work, but just to be. Terra Nova was not discussed. We didn't have to. We discussed the project we were working on, our destination. They were now full-time interns. Tam was given the position of data lead. Jenna had received an industry award nomination. We toasted with ginger ale and sparkling water. And someone said, holding up a cup, "To Naomi, for demonstrating that you don't have to destroy relationships." Jenna smiled as she completed it. "All you have to do is construct a better one." I pulled the planner off the shelf that evening and turned to the final page. For years, it had been blank. I grabbed a pen and composed, "Some systems aren't worth saving, but people always are." I then shut it for the last time and didn't use it as a crutch, as a remnant, because I was no longer able to keep things together. I was creating something that didn't require isolation. She didn't interfere with the system. She just stopped trying to keep it together. When the fissures they disregarded eventually gave way, she didn't go back and correct it. She moved forward and constructed a better structure. Because remaining hidden isn't a sign of true strength. Knowing when to leave is key. And deciding to be seen this time.